Just over 2 years ago, President Muhammadu Buhari was sworn in as the sixth president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If he had said some things he did not mean during the campaign, everybody took what he said during his inauguration rather seriously, because he had at least 60 days to plan his program and write his speech. Having been congratulated by the then incumbent president on March 29, even while the polls were still being counted, our job today is easy for the above reason. Using his speech and the manifesto of his party, the APC, we want to objectively assess how faithful President Buhari has been in implementing the promises made to Nigerians. These promises were apparently powerful enough to have convinced Nigerians to hand him a coveted electoral victory with a margin of over 3 million. We cannot pass by the fact without noting that Buhari's electoral victory was full of implications, because it will represent the first time ever in Nigeria's political history an opposition party will be taking over power at the center. In assessing this administration, we will not consider the 100 tantalizing promises published in a document that was later rejected by the president, even though many voters would argue that they did not realize that it was the APC and not the presidential candidate of the APC that had published those 100 promises. As usual, during political campaigns, a lot of things happen, but a new government is here, and we are not aware of any ongoing court case challenging the legitimacy of this government. So, we will not consider anything that pertains to the campaigns, because we want a fair assessment of this regime. We'll give an opportunity to the most important opposition party we have for now, the PDP, to refute or consent to whatever will be claimed today as an achievement of the current government. We also have in the studio one of the leading investigative journalists in Nigeria, who knows a lot more about a country than the average person, and who will be able to intervene appropriately as an unbiased source of credible information. Please enjoy this short clip before we meet these distinguished gentlemen. I am Shola AJ, and this is The Summit. The first time General Muhammadu Buhari contested for the presidency was in 2003. Buhari lost that election but did not lose his ambition to become a civilian president. In 2007, he again contested and lost to his homeboy, Shehu Yaradua, who died before the end of his first term. Buhari put his hat in the ring for the third time and contested against Dr. Goodluck Jonathan in 2011. He lost that election too. He finally lost his interest in running for office until 2013, when a successful merger of the APC forced him back to the trenches. Buhari eventually made history by unseating incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan. The most important issues, according to pollsters, on the minds of Nigerians during the 2015 presidential election were corruption and insecurity. No doubt, Buhari's campaign message centered around these same issues, given his background as an upright military man, as an edge over his rivals. Nigerians were hoping that with the fight against corruption and better security, the economy will have no option but to improve. Furthermore, because part of Nigeria's developmental challenge has been rampant nepotism, when Buhari declared his famous 9-word mantra, "I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody," Nigerians applauded, fully expecting a shift from cronyism to meritocracy. The future looked bright, and members of the electorate who had voted for Buhari began to congratulate themselves. However, reality began to set in. The first thing that got Buhari supporters complaining was the fact that it took him 6 months to appoint ministers into his cabinet. Then there was a budget padding scandal, which will always remain a sore point in the assessment of this government. Unfortunately, nobody has been severely punished for their role in that scandal. One clear thing the Buhari government has achieved
without any doubt, seems to be the downgrading of the dreaded Boko Haram sect. These days, they can only attack soft targets through suicide bombers. Another area where Nigerians have been relatively pleased with President Buhari is in the fight against corruption, even though some members of the society are concerned about the apparent lopsidedness of the anti-corruption war and the modus operandi of some prosecuting agencies who blatantly disregard court rulings. To say that Buhari's constant medical vacations have affected his approval rating would be stating the obvious. But many of his supporters have been quick to point out that unlike former President Yar'Adua, who nearly provoked a constitutional crisis by failing to transfer power to his vice when he left the country, President Buhari has consistently done the needful in validating the stringent calls by some Nigerians for him to resign to attend to his health. Buhari's supporters also have recent release of 82 Chibok girls to point to as achievement worthy of celebration. No matter how one wants to look at it, the fact is that today, whether due to problems inherited or problems created, many of Buhari's supporters are dealing with something close to disillusionment. However, in spite of all the serious setbacks, it must be pointed out that the Buhari administration recorded some definite achievements while working towards the realization of others. The TSA account system, initiated by Goodluck Jonathan administration, is now being implemented virtually across the board. The ghost worker syndrome that was also championed by Goodluck Jonathan administration has continued with vigor and is now responsible for saving the current administration billions of naira. The cost of governance is also down, and the government recently claimed to have saved 19 billion naira, cutting down on what it described as unnecessary allowances. Many other infrastructure projects are ongoing, including railway expansion, and at the same time, the government has been able to break the 1 trillion naira mark in budgeted capital expenditure for the year 2017. Indulging in corruption is now more difficult and extremely risky due to the general mood of the nation and the whistleblower policy, which has already secured legislative backing. Again, several billions of naira have been recovered from individuals who cannot account for their sources of wealth other than the fact that they once served in government. Fuel is more available today, even though at a more expensive rate. There is a handful of other things that can be credited to the Buhari administration, but the bottom line is that a fair assessment of his administration must be referenced to the promises that they were electorally made, because these have serious implications for democracy, since it was on the basis of these promises that Nigerians made their choices.
This episode is about assessing the last 2 years of the Buhari-led APC government. And with me in the studio to deal with this matter squarely are two giants of APC and PDP, and a brother who's also a journalist. Ibanga Isine is one of Nigeria's leading investigative journalists and a former regional editor at Premium Times, now managing editor of the nextedition.com. He's also an award-winning journalist, honored at Wole Soyinka's Award for Investigative Journalism in 2014, and in 2015, CNN MultiChoice African Journalist Award in the News Impact category. He was also named the overall winner of the Humanitarian Reporting Awards of the Rotary International. Now, with us also is Mark Jacobs, former Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice, Kaduna State. He was also former National Legal Advisor to People's Democratic Party. We tried reaching Bolaji Abdullahi, the APC National Publicity Secretary, and he was also former Minister of Youth and Sports Development, but couldn't oblige due to short notice. But to take his place is someone who's also very apt and will be representing APC in the proper way. That is Adaji Usman, FCT State Publicity Secretary. Please, you're all welcome.
Thank you.
We'll dive straight into this matter. We're talking about 2 years of the Buhari-led APC government. In almost any country where there's democracy, the party in government makes a lot of promises that probably they can't keep or they fail to keep. In your case, you represent APC.
Yeah.
Which are some of those things that you think you promised people and you're living up to?
Well, good evening, viewers. Let me start first and foremost by saying that the APC Buhari-led administration has done so well in the last 2 years. They have been able to live up to their promises. And as the program progresses, I think I'll be letting the viewers into some of the things that have been done with the Buhari-led administration. It will be out of place to say that some of the promises have been left untouched, because so far so good. The Buhari-led administration is just 2 years into the administration, and we have a 4-year term to go, even though the 4th year is full of activities for the next year's election, for the subsequent election. But having said that, I would want to say that 90% of the promises made by this administration so far have been touched left, right, and center.
Okay, you're speaking like a real politician now.
Yes.
Tell us some of those promises that your party, when you came into office, that Nigerians were hoping that you will at least deliver on.
It will interest you to know that topmost among the priorities the government had before coming into office was the issue of corruption, which was basically one of the major issues that the country was confronted with before we came in. Confronted, I use the word was because at that time it was as if corruption was not an issue to be touched, to be taken care of at all, because virtually in all facets of our administration, corruption was at its highest level. It was one of the promises we made, and since we came in about 2 years ago, even Nigerians will bear us out that it's on the top burner. We are really dealing with the issue here and there. Like I said, I would want to just run through them one after the other. We equally talked about the issue of security. You will agree with me that before the government came in, even staying in this studio was like, sitting on the keg of gunpowder, waiting to explode with the previous government. But I think a lot of us can go to sleep with our 2 eyes closed today as regards the issue of security. The issue of reserves, foreign reserves, fixed reserves was another issue that was not really taken care of before the coming of this administration. But as it stands today, I think we have it at a very stable rate as we speak today. I want to equally talk about the issue of agriculture. Before now, in the last administration, it was like there was a national cake and everybody could just go in there and then cut out of it, and that was what it was. White collar job was just the issue, the order of the day. But today, a lot of us are already thinking out of the box. So many of us have seen reasons why we should return back to the farm, agriculture, food sufficiency. We should be able to have food produced by us and consumed by us there, and if possible, we have enough, export. And that is another area we're really looking at. This and several other things are issues that this government has been tackling since they came into power.
Okay. Well, I heard you say that we can all go to sleep in the issue of security.
Yes.
Mark, do you agree?
For me, security is one of the basic outstanding failures of this administration. And I know when we talk, we now hear new English phrases of degraded or defeated. And the debate continues whether Nigeria has defeated Boko Haram or has degraded it. At different times, state organs and officers of government use different terminologies. And it all builds up to the absence of sincerity. The government, and I will contextualize my presentation here, that I come from a part of the state, of the country, that has not known peace since the advent of this administration. Within my community, not less than 800 people have been killed within this period. Not due to natural causes of earthquakes or storms, but by willful, calculated handwork of identifiable people. The government, through its organs and through its officers, the governor and 19 northern governors for that matter, have said they know where the killers are, about people. But it's shocking that 2 years down the line, nobody has been arrested or prosecuted for coming to kill in our communities. And this is ongoing in Southern Kaduna, it's ongoing in Benue, it's ongoing in Taraba, it's extending now to Enugu, to Ekiti, and other parts of the country. So when we are talking about achievements, is it just the noise about Boko Haram being degraded that is the issue? Contextually, the country is the constituency of the entire, of the government. Nobody should concentrate on whether the Northeast is relatively calm now and then ignore what is happening around the country. Secondly, when we are talking about corruption, which they want to applaud themselves for, it's very embarrassing that institutions are no longer respected or involved in this fight. Rather, we have a situation where the executive arm of government is out to downgrade and demystify and make or render useless all other arms of government. So, in the name of corruption or fighting corruption, you have a situation where the executive arm of government is going after the judiciary, is running after and downgrading and embarrassing the legislative arm of government, and ensuring that all individuals and persons who were connected to the previous government are hunted and brought down. For me, that is not a fight against corruption. Corruption exists in Nigeria, and it is not the exclusive of any arm of government. If we look carefully, it is in every sector. And if we are going to be sincere in fighting corruption, corruption should be fought at all sectors. Don't shield. When you are accused or when allegations are levied against star officers of this government, the federal government decides to set up an internal committee to look at the situation and investigate. But when it involves other persons, either in other arms of government or members of other parties, the government sends EFCC after or DSS after such persons and or organizations. That is not fighting against corruption. That is war against individuals and or institutions. And you cannot succeed. And you can see it. It's coming out very clearly that when you decide that the judiciary, for instance, is your enemy, and you go after them in commando style, you will not go far. Because at the end of the day, it's the same judiciary that you come and depend upon.
Okay, Mark,
yes.
Obviously you've tackled two areas which he has mentioned, corruption and security.
Yes.
I know before the show started, Ibanga said, you too are the problem. Ibanga, do you agree with what they're talking about?
Yeah, I am a Nigerian and I've been in Nigeria for as long as I was born. And I know the problems of the country, and I feel so bad that things have gone this way. He has said about certain things that the party in power now promised, and I was here when those promises were made, and I have the manifesto. Thank God, it's not like something you can't find. It was difficult to get the PDP manifesto at the time, but now I have the manifesto of APC, and I followed it up. I was around during the campaign. APC,
okay,
yes, because it's in government.
Okay,
it's in government, a party in power. I have the APC manifesto, and it's a lengthy document. And in that document, in the preface to that document, the national chairman, Onyego, said it is based on this manifesto that they would be judged. It's clearly there after 4 years.
Good.
And it was titled 2015 Election Manifesto.
The 100...
all the promises that they have made is in that manifesto, in that document. It's about 80-something pages or so. And so when he's talking about a manifesto, kind of manifesto with that level of promises and what has happened, it really trickles.
But wasn't that, also a point where they said Buhari rejected that? Wasn't it?
You cannot reject if you are running on the platform of a political party. You are not independent. You are representing that political party. If you did not believe in what the party stands for, you could not take it. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. It would be a novel thing for you to tell the party, yes, I'll do this, and then immediately after you get the ticket and you say, no, you just send that. It doesn't happen anywhere, and I don't think it happened in Buhari is a very responsible person, and he would not do that.
So
my
speak to those two.
Yeah, the issues of security. Yeah. Yes, security in terms of Boko Haram has really, the Boko Haram issue, even before they came into office. I remember I was at the media chat with Jonathan when 6 weeks, the election was shifted for 6 weeks to allow the troops to go in and make way for election to be held in all those areas. And at that time, the defense headquarters came and published documents showing that most of only three areas were left to be, taken over by the Nigerian military, or less than 3. It was almost over. And so the elections were held in most of those areas. And then, but the thing relapsed shortly after. And Boko Haram became so bold, they were not bombing again during the election, because if they were that strong, they would have bombed, they would have caused mayhem during the election. But the election came and went, the results came. And so during that interval of setting up the government and the cabinet, and a lot of things went wrong. And then Boko Haram was so bold and then could take sort of communities, towns in the north. But today, that is a different story. The government has done a lot. I don't know whether they have bought new equipment. I don't know how much investment has gone into that. But if anybody tells me that Boko Haram is still as powerful, as strong as it was before they came in, or when they came in, I'll say no. They have done something in that direction. But there's insecurity everywhere.
Ibanga,
yes.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, you open with that, because I've basically just heard all your opening statements. And it looks like this is going to be a very exciting debate. Okay. So we'll be back. Yeah, welcome back. Ibanga, I stopped you earlier when you were trying to talk about this insecurity all over the land, the scourge of kidnappings, scourge of
the herdsmen, the attacks by herdsmen,
the herdsmen and all the other people. Yes. Yeah.
So what I was trying to say was that while Boko Haram has been depleted, they don't carry out those daring attacks they were known for. An armed robbery to some extent has reduced. Now, kidnapping. Yesterday, a mechanic came to check one of the cars in the house, and then he called me not quite long after I picked the car and said the sister was kidnapped in Kaduna from the farm. And then he was restless, and in the farm, not in southern Kaduna, but outskirts of Kaduna town. And a woman went to farm, and we are talking of agriculture. And the woman went to farm and was picked in the farm, and they're asking for a poor family that cannot even afford fertilizer. They're asking them to bring 1 million. Where would they get that kind of money? Now you're talking of herdsmen. It is so very glaring. If the government were to go after herdsmen the same way they go after Boko Haram, there'll be no community or town or village displaced. by criminal headsmen. It's no longer news, or it's no longer something we should say suspected, because it is glaring. They kill people every day, they kidnap people every day, they commit atrocities all across the country. So are they not also a threat to security? When you look at the pervasive nature of the attack, it has gone to southwest, it is in southeast, it is in south-south, and then in the northeast, everywhere. When the issue of Southern Kaduna brings, let me talk about that because I've been going there. Now, when Governor El-Rufai was campaigning for election, he said nobody in Kaduna will be killed, and the killer goes away with it. That it was impunity of PDP that allowed that kind of scenario to happen under him. And then immediately he came into office, there was this case of killings by herdsmen and then cattle rustling in the northern part of Kaduna State.
Let me quickly interject. You did mention the governor, Nasir El-Rufai,
yes.
Claiming that it was through PDP as a result of
the negligence
of PDP,
yes,
that had happened. But isn't he somebody, when he was campaigning, whom everybody literally thought was a Midas, and anything he touches would have been great? So how is this happening under him?
That's what they should explain.
Maybe I need to.
No. They need to explain. They need to explain.
I think I need to come in here. First and foremost, let me acknowledge the fact that you have agreed with us that this government is not a secretive or a secret court or a secretive kind of operates under a secretive disguise. Because you just made us understood now that for 16 years of PDP running, there was no manifesto of the party, or rather, it could not really lay a hand on the manifesto of the party. But APC does that. I think that is a credit to this party. That means that we are very transparent and open. And of course, we don't promise what we cannot do. That is where we have to take it from in the first place. Talking about the issue of killing, I want us to look at it from this angle. If there is a bomb that is detonated, that comes up in the market square, the truth about it is that you cannot identify who possibly could be the victim of that bomb. Whether it may be an APC person, PDP, AMPP, or whatever party as the case may be. That means that the APC is as affected as every other Nigerian, because we don't have a state known for PDP as a PDP state or APC state that we say, look, bombs are detonated, or rather, bombs that what do we call it? That we have bomb blasts in a particular state meant for PDP. Now, what am I trying to say? This party is concerned about the life of its citizens because the president has sworn to an oath to protect life and properties of the Nigerian citizens. And that is exactly what the president is doing. What is the strength of our security personnel today in this country? Talking about the issue of insurgents, the issue of Fulani herdsmen, talking about the cattle rustlers and all whatnot. Just recently, somewhere in Benue State, some persons were arrested, claimed to be Fulani herdsmen or cattle rustlers as the case may be. And when they were arrested, I think just one out of the lot that were arrested was seen to have come from the northern part of the country. And yet, disguised in that attire that portrays them to be Fulani herdsmen or to have come from the northern part of the country. What can you say in situations like this? This is a problem we have on our hand. And this problem is not an issue that can be confronted and, taken care of just in a day. It's a process. And the government is already tackling this issue as it were. Day in, day out, the government is at it. And we are achieving results. It might be slow, but steady. And we are getting there. I want us to equally understand that when he talks about the issue of corruption and so on and so forth. Now, my dear brother, APC is 2 years into the office. PDP ruled this country for 16 solid years. This issue of insecurity was just everywhere. The issue of corruption were everywhere. If today we sit down here today and then begin to see the APC as one, mini god that could just come and then whatever they thought changes overnight, then honestly, I think we're not being fair to ourselves, not to the party, because we're all Nigerians. The party has come up with a program. They have a program, and I'm happy you said that the APC said, look, we will be judged with this manifesto at the expiration of our 4 years. We are 2 years in. Don't forget that the first 1 year was used basically to take care of issues, dents that have been put in place by the previous government. A lot of things were wrong. So many things were wrong. And of course, you don't expect that. It's just like somebody wants to build a house. I mean, it is easier for you to put up a new structure one way and it goes than coming to begin to, refurbish or renovate what has been put in place. It takes a lot to be able to do that. And that is where the APC has started from. The first 1 year, like the president presented the budget this year, and he said, this is the budget we are really going to hinge on. And with this budget, I think it will be able to take us to somewhere. And I can assure you strongly that if we are being sincere to ourselves in this country, 6 months, even before the budget has been passed into law, it's passed into law, 6 months down the line, I think the party is really on track and is doing well.
And, sorry.
Yes.
I mean, you can see Mark is shaking.
Yeah, he is.
Why
because
did you speak to that point
in his
Honestly, that is where we have issues.
Yes.
When confronted with questions of facts, answer this and answer that.
Yeah.
Most APC spokespersons go into semantics and eulogizing and sermonization. We're talking about promises contained in your own documents, over 100 promises. Nobody made those promises on behalf of APC. For instance, there was a promise that within 3 months, Boko Haram will be defeated. It's in that document. This is getting to 3 years. Boko Haram is still bombing people. Nobody used the word degrade in your manifesto. Is it that there was something wrong with your assessment of the situation before you made the promises? This was a social contract you are entering into with the electorate. When you enter such contracts, when you begin to explain and deviate from it, it's a breach of contract. Secondly, the security issue we are talking of. I'm not giving you hyperbolical examples. As I'm talking to you now, my own brother was killed yesterday. He's in the mortuary. I will leave this place for the burial. He was killed in his farm by Fulani. Nobody is guessing about it.
Please accept our sympathy.
Thank you. And we have this thing going on day in, day out. We have seen situations where the willingness of government has been shown. The willingness and the desire of government to checkmate criminality in some circumstances has been displayed. And we applauded the APC for that. When cattle rustling was at its worst in Kaduna State, for instance, the APC government mobilized the Air Force, the police, civil defense, and put them on the job. And within 2 months, there was a massive calm. When it came to attacks in southern Kaduna, attacks in Agatu, attacks in Taraba, APC is talking about slow and steady.
Why do you think
and that is the question. You see, we have a situation where human life is now totally devalued. The only time that the federal government agencies like NEMA and even the Inspector General of Police responded to the killings in southern Kaduna was when they started debating the figures involved of casualties. That was the first time we had a word from NEMA to say, no, you are saying it's 800. No, it's just 240. The same thing, the Inspector General of Police. That human life, Nigerians' life, had been so devalued that we only hear government talk about it when they want to talk about figures. We're not talking about fish. We're talking about human beings, Nigerians, that have been slaughtered, not that they had accidents. People will be sleeping in their communities, they will be surrounded and killed, their houses burnt. As I talk to you today, there is no relief camp in southern Kaduna by government. Not even one. Of course, APC and PDP and non-politicians were all victims. And that is what we are saying, that when human life is involved, it should be addressed. It is an issue of urgency.
So
not to take time, say that we are taking our time, it doesn't happen. For God's sake, when will you take serious measures? Is it when everybody is gone?
What you're saying, Mark,
yes,
is that the effort by this government is not cohesive enough to arrest the situation.
Let me tell you.
Is it?
If you approach the herdsmen issue, the way you approach Boko Haram, the seriousness with which it has been approached, even in the last 1 year. If they approach the issue of the herdsmen like that, it will be brought to a stop. Because these people are identifiable.
Sorry, Banga.
They are seen.
Speak to this, because
there's
you brought up the herdsmen first. So speak to this, and then I'll let the APC.
The issue of herdsmen is really very sad, because the government has allowed it to fester. It couldn't have been. And at the point you tend to believe that there is some form of connivance with the herdsmen, because just a few days ago, Benue State came up with a law to stop open grazing and to establish ranches. And people sat in Abuja, in Nigeria, and said, no, a law that has been legitimately, it is within the powers of the State House of Assembly to make such laws, right? Mm-hmm. And they made the law, and it was assented to by the governor. And people sat in Abuja and said, no, it can't happen. We are going to fight it. We are going to... Where are the SSS? Where is the Inspector General of Police? Why should those people not be arrested? We are talking of... Now, apart from these, let me just bring in something more. The IPOD, Indigenous People of Biafra, and now, just yesterday, Arewa youth said no, Igbos should leave there. We have, during the last 2 years, we have grown farther apart, more than it has. I was not there when the Civil War took place, but I guess we are closer to another civil war than we were 10 years ago. And if we fall into it, God forbid, we will not survive it. This drum of war, this content, because people are killed and nobody is doing something about it. Somebody goes into some other people. Look, I am yet to see an Akwa Ibom man come with his bow, with his machete or cutlass, to go to Kaduna or Zamfara and start cutting, clearing the ground and tilling the ground and planting things. You don't do that. But herdsmen will come from everywhere and enter my farm and devastate my farm, destroy my farm. And I say, please, why would you do this? And they kill me, and nobody is saying anything about it. Why wouldn't I feel rejected? Why would I feel that the government has abandoned me? It's so annoying. It's so very annoying that I cannot go to fish in Arugungu River if I'm not from there. But somebody comes to my place with a cattle and enters everywhere. It's free to go to anywhere. So there's a right for certain laws for certain people, and they have certain liberties, and other people don't have. The same thing with the resource control. I'm bringing all these things down because I'm also a journalist and a Nigerian, and I feel these things too.
We'll come to the economy.
Yes,
but let him speak to that herdsman.
Yes, I want to say that honestly, I think I'm happy with this debate, because is it possible, sir, for somebody who does not know about, if I have a house and then I have a 4, 5, 6 bedroom flats and I have certain things in some rooms, can somebody who has never been to my house come straight into that house, go straight to where I have it kept and then pick it without an insider giving him directive on how to get there? I am trying to say this because, you see, the problem of this country is an issue that all of us really have to sit down and then look at it with keen interest. Interest in the sense that sometimes when we begin to look at the fresh tree, the dry tree probably falling off, the fresh one might be going down. What do I mean by this? Often at times where these things happen, we discover that insiders are involved in this, but that is the bitter truth that a lot of us don't want to agree with. And that was why I gave an instance of the recent happening in Benue, where most of them were found not to be from the northern part of the country. I will be happy, the APC will be happy, and all Nigerians will be happy to see a day where somebody from Akwa Ibom will move straight to Kaduna, to Jos, to Maiduguri, and then say, look, I'm an indigene because I have lived here for 10 years, and claim that, and vice versa. That would be a very wonderful period to behold.
Thank you. Let's take a quick break.
Yeah.
We're assessing the last 2 years of the Buhari-led APC government, and we'll be right back. Idaji,
Yeah.
before we actually had a break, you were talking about certain challenges and, in fact, an incident that took place in Benue.
Yeah.
Are there certain challenges that the APC government is facing that the public is unaware of?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of challenges that this government is being faced and confronted with. One of such challenges is the fact that in every administration, but I think with this, more peculiar with this present administration, saboteurs. We have a lot of saboteurs who are not ready to allow this government progress. For whatever reason, I think, which is known to them, it is sad to note that once government takes steps to ensure that some of these things are taken care of, you will see certain persons from certain quarters pulling back this administration. Let me give you an instance. The issue of corruption we've been talking about here, the government is doing everybody. For instance, you cannot convict anybody until the competent court of law says so. We have taken a lot of cases to court that need to be dealt with properly so that certain persons can be brought to book in terms of corruption. But often at times, we discover that most of these people go scot-free. Whereas Nigerians, you and I know that these people are truly criminals. These are some of the facts that this government is faced with. There are facts like most of us don't read because Nigerians are not really good in reading. Like I said from the very beginning, before 2016, about 1.18 trillion external and domestic debts were owed by the last government. To interest you to know that the Yar'Adua and Obasanjo's government owed no debt before the coming in of the last administration. But as it stands today, what we are talking about is that those debts have been serviced by this particular government, and yet people says the government is not doing anything. As we talk to you today, our foreign reserve, fixed reserves, has been fixed at about $300 billion today as we speak to you today. Yet this government is not doing anything. And before now, the previous administration had almost about $64 billion before they came in, and it dropped almost about $29 billion. You understand? Before the last government. But a lot of people don't know about this, that this government is doing a lot on this area. Salaries are being paid today. The government is not borrowing from anywhere to pay salaries. It will interest you to know that before now, in the previous government, the crude oil was sold for about $100 per barrel. Now it's below 50. Yet we are not borrowing money to carry out this assignment. Before this moment, it will equally interest you to know that the FIRS is an organization that has been in existence. Didn't start with this government. The issue of custom didn't start with this government. But today, because of what has been happening in the Niger Delta and so on and so forth, what is the percentage accruing from the oil in terms of what comes in and what we have from FIRS and customs put together? I think majorly, customs FIRS is one of the major areas where we make money to pay salaries and some other things. If today we have the oil booming, and then we have FIRS doing what they're supposed to do, and we have the custom bringing in what is expected to come in, I'm sure that your guess will be as good as mine, that the issue of recession, the issue of poverty, the issue of this and that would have been a thing of the past. Let me say this before I call it off, that as we speak today, the common man on the street, like the artisans, the kunu sellers and so on, cry out today that, look, this government is not doing enough, we are hungry and so on. Why wouldn't they be hungry? When in the time past, those who have stolen from our coffers go out there, build mansions and so on. And in the course of probably the engineers doing one job or the other, from the proceeds that these people have stolen, you discover that the artisans will come there, of course, the laborers' jobs will be done, they make their money, those selling groundnuts, kunu and no whatnot comes there again. These people, because these monies were ill-gotten, they can no longer bring out this money to carry out this assignment. Hoarding this money, and these projects are no longer going on. So it trickles down, and that is why the common man on the street will say, look, there's no market, there's no business. In the past, it is completely an issue of corruption.
Yes. Let Mark respond to, because of course, as a new administration, you know you're going to be blamed. So respond to what he said.
You know, I love the barefacedness of APC, because to a large extent, they are not ashamed to run away from responsibility. They are very good at it. Anything that is negative, they will heap it on the last administration. But anything that is positive, they will say they did it. Like the degrading of Boko Haram, everybody knows that before the election, a lot of things were done. After they took over, they didn't buy one single arm. It was what was purchased by the previous administration that they used. But they will never give the glory to that past administration. But be that as may, let me go back to the real issue.
Sorry, but
poverty.
But the record showed differently.
Honestly, that's
The
not true.
record,
showed
as
differently.
at the
not
time this government took over in 2015, up to 2016 budget, there was no expenditure from this current government on the procurement of arms. Go and check the records.
That's not true.
There was nothing
You're in
like
a
that.
position.
Yes, I'm not a PDP person. I'm not APC. Yes, I can also say that's true. That's the truth. The government in 2015, when they came in, and 2016 did not buy. It is now the government is trying to, really
Procure
go
new
into
things.
procure new.
The records are very
equipment.
clear. And they went public.
But the
sorry.
truth is, what
But
happens
couldn't
is
that be blamed on the problem with the economy, with the dollars and
so
No,
if you could,
but you see, they didn't procure arms, but they used arms. Where were the arms from?
No.
But
Now,
those arms equally were there before 2016. Why were those arms not judicially put into
maybe we'll
use?
blame the
I was supposed to have the floor. I was supposed to have the floor.
It was my beat.
So the fact is that the Buhari is a soldier. He connects directly with that constituency, and so coming in with his background and a soldier, the soldiers respecting one of their own, they go out there. They were motivated, sort of, and then they did what they are doing. And Boko Haram is not as audacious as they were before. I think I still give them credit. But you don't solve one problem and allow 1,000 problems to fester.
Yes.
Kidnapping all over the country. Herdsmen attack almost across the country. So that if for the first time in this country, states are making laws on grazing. It could not happen if it was not life-threatening. Most states, like Akwa Ibom State, is initiating such a bill. It has been initiated in Benue. It has been in Ondo. Most states, Cross River is looking at it. So, which means it is, since the federal government has failed to handle that issue, now states are making creating laws to safeguard. Taraba is also going into that. So what are we talking about?
Yes, sir.
The life of an average Nigerian, whether he is poor, he's rich, is from the north, is from the south, is very, very important. And government has a sacred duty to ensure that no life is lost, and anybody who takes somebody's life should pay for it based on the law, according to the provisions of the law.
I will come back to
and
you. So, Mark, you wanted to chip in?
Yes, I was going because he said a lot about agriculture. He said a lot about the kunu sellers and the gida sellers, and linked it up to corruption. I totally disagree that Nigerians were building mansions or running companies simply because they are corrupt. That is an insult on the psyche, on the generality of Nigerians.
Not at all.
Not everybody building a house is corrupt, for God's sake.
No, I think
I didn't say that.
Let me quote.
The point he
that.
said
Let me
is
quote
that
what I
the
think
kunu
I
sellers,
heard.
we are making it because people were building mansions and then employing labor. And so the laborers were buying this kunu and other things.
Well, let me ask
but
you a
that is not
question.
correct.
Mark, let me ask you a question.
I have built a house from hard-earned money. And I know people that have built houses from hard-earned money.
It's
not correct.
Sorry.
Then there's need to
A
be a
lot of houses currently
Yes.
are being seized, okay, from ill-gotten money. A lot of houses are being seized. Is he not referring to those kind of?
I am happy you are using. I'm happy you are qualifying your statement with a lot.
Yes,
It doesn't, and we can take record of those houses compared to if you have 1 million houses, we can see that maybe 15 have been seized. Is that
Not at all.
the correct assessment of Nigerians?
If you will permit me,
let me finish.
Because I want to correct.
No, when you were talking, I didn't interrupt.
Let
When you come into office as a government and you are just angry with everybody that is prospering. You are after anybody that is making it. Anybody that is making it is tagged a criminal or is tagged a thief. I don't agree with that.
But Mark,
there are people.
Is that really correct?
It is. Because that is what is happening.
I don't think that's correct.
No, I don't think
if you say that people who have criticized the government, every time and hard on government have been picked, I could say that because I've seen a few cases of people who, because they have constantly been on the neck of the government,
I am building on what he said.
But again,
the ordinary man was happy.
But again, it would be a hasty generalization to say
you can't
that
generalize.
all those who built
that they were building for corruption.
Because of corruption.
It was hasty generalization.
Let me ask a question, sir.
So put it into perspective.
If you go out now, people are building now.
Yes.
People are building as we speak now.
No, you said they are not building again.
No, that was not my point.
You can correct it.
Listen,
you can correct yourself now to say that there are people now building.
Then, if you remember, a lot of people were building massively, left, right, and center.
Is that wrong?
They're still building.
Is that wrong?
You are not.
They're still building.
Just listen to me. Just listen to me. Now, somebody who is on a payroll, I can give you an instance now. There are a lot of people here who perhaps are probably maybe assistant director or deputy directors, for instance. What is their take home? A take home of an assistant director. Now he is putting up a mansion of about 500 housing units, all at a time. How did they make that money? What is his salary? How did they come about that? What business does he do? I'm coming. I'm trying to get us somewhere.
Yes.
We are saying, like I said, I did ask a question. I said, people are still building houses these days, but it's not as compared to what was obtainable yesterday, where those who had ill-gotten wealth were everywhere doing this business. So it's skeletal compared to what it were then. So whoever you see putting up a project now, perhaps would have been a businessman who have acquired that money legitimately and could be ready for anybody who would come to ask questions.
So are you saying that
is building houses a sign of corruption?
Are you saying that because people built houses or people were building, it was actually...
How many houses do you have in Abuja?
I don't have any.
No,
wait, hang on.
Are you not interested in having
one other thing has come out. You brought out something that I want us to address here.
Yes.
Now, most of those who are being chased now and arrested and are facing prosecution are politicians, not civil servants.
Yes.
But how many civil servants have been picked? Because as far as I'm concerned in this country, as far as I'm concerned in this country, I have been in government. I was a special assistant to a minister.
Yes.
And I know what happens.
Yes.
Now, a politician could come in clean, wants to do the right thing.
Good.
And the civil servant said, no, that's not how we do it.
Beautiful.
And if you don't do what they ask you to do, they blackmail you, they get you one way or the other, and they kick you out.
Yeah.
Now, we are fighting corruption and picking politicians.
Yes.
What is happening to the civil servant upon which corruption grows like mushroom? They are the manure.
Yes.
The civil servant civil service is the manure from which corruption, because if we have a strong civil service that is credible with integrity, nobody will come to steal money and go away with it. The civil servant will checkmate it.
Let me chip in here.
It is happening because the civil servants are getting theirs and they're getting away with it, and politicians it's like having a cat and the rat in the same house. The rat will bear all the blames for the fish that is disappearing in the can.
Let me indulge you in saying I'd like to invite you for a follow-up show. Let me thank Mark Jacobs, former Attorney General of Kaduna State, Mr. Idaji, who happens to be the APC spokesperson for FCT, Ibanga Iseri. Thank you so much. The senior special advisor to the president on media and publicity recently posited that it was too early to judge the Buhari administration. While the man is entitled to his opinion, Nigerians have not shown the kind of patience he seems to expect of them. As far as they are concerned, it will never be too early to fix the economy. It will never be too early to have the Naira rebound and begin to enjoy some stability in its value. It will never be too early to have sufficient power generation and seamless power distribution. It will never be too early to rid the streets of criminal gangs, kidnappers, and also rid the hinterlands of rampaging herdsmen and other terrorists. It will never be too early to provide jobs for the millions of jobless youths currently idling away. Neither will it ever be too early to achieve real results in the anti-corruption campaign. In spite of whatever they may have done, whatever they may be doing, and whatever they may be planning to do, it will be in the interest of the Buhari administration to pay close attention to the voice of the people, who showed their power during the 2015 general election and will show their power again in 2 years. Between now and then, we'll keep watching and waiting and hoping. Thanks for watching. I'm Shola J. You have been on The Summit.